Welcome to the next episode of The Keys to Macarthur. I'm Stuart Davies, the principal of Macarthur in Camden, and I'm very proud to say I'm joined this afternoon by Glen Denholm. Glen is, I'm going to say, and embarrass him, quite a local legend in the Camden area, and an incredible story and a wonderful history, and I couldn't think of a better guest to join us here this afternoon. Glen, g'day, welcome.
G'day, mate. How are you?
I'm good, yourself?
Oh, fit as a buck rat.
Good on you. So let's go back. You were 2 when you were thrown on the back of a horse. Is that about right?
Yes, we lived in the police residence residence out at Emu Plains, and I would think Dad put me on one of the horses then. He was training dogs for the army at that stage. Was seconded from the police force into the army.
Right.
And they had police barracks out there at Emu Plains, and they gave Mum and Dad a police residence.
Okay.
So I think it's now a coffee lounge.
Okay, yeah. So Dad was synonymous with training animals.
Yep. Tell
us a bit about that.
Well, he was regarded in his time as a world authority for the training of police dogs. He always said that my grandfather, Davy House in Denham, was a better trainer than he could have ever been. Dad did things with dogs that they can't do today.
Right.
He was just very unique. He would always go away at dark and come back, and he'd do that for a week. And at the end of 6 weeks, the dog could virtually talk to him. You know, it was unbelievable. A bit secretive, but most good trainers of animals are.
Always got
you've
something.
Always got to have a little bit up your sleeve.
Indeed. Yeah. German Shepherds and Dad, and for those listening who are old enough, Dad also trained Skippy the Bush Kangaroo.
Yeah, Dad started with a fella called Lee Robinson, who owned Fauna Productions. They were based at Artarmon, and Lee wanted to do a program about kangaroos and kids and helicopters and different stuff. So Dad took up and helped build and set up Fauna Productions at Ingleside. Really.
Yes.
I don't think it's operating anymore. And from there, he had a nucleus of Australian fauna, and from there he went on. We used a principal kangaroo called Jojo, and she lived with us. We're at our home at Castle Crag, and there was about 4 or 5 others that were stand-ins or something went wrong. But she'd almost talk. She was unbelievable, and we had her. He found her on the road. Mother had been hit by a motor car. And the old man was always looking for little things, and he found her. She was still in the pouch of the mother.
Right.
And brought her home, bottle fed her. And she was sort of acclimatised to us, you know.
Yeah.
Just like a house dog she was.
So that brings me to my next question. So is training a kangaroo vastly different from training a German Shepherd?
You can't train them. They've got a big body and a little brain. I mean, you can acclimatise them to things, but you can't train them as such. We had to go away into the bush, and we were able to go onto a property, and in those days they had what they call drives, and they take a mob of kangaroos and you euthanise them. We had to get some bodies for the university to be stuffed, and we also got the university to do arms and that sort of thing. So when you see Skippy playing the kangaroo, they're arms of kangaroos that we've acquired. So, it's a few about. I think it's 60 million of the last count.
So a couple of things that you're incredibly well known for, and we'll talk about them, but you're a remarkable horseman. Now, did that come from Dad, or is that something that you sort of developed on your own?
I think everything's hereditary, Stu. I really believe that. I think it comes down through your genes. My great-grandfather had a farm in Scotland called Hangenshaw. My Aunt Bella, who was 103 when she passed away, Bella was a ploughwoman. My grandfather, Davy Denholm, was a ploughman, and they all worked horses. All those old fellows were veterinary surgeons in their own right.
Okay.
Because there was no vets.
Yes.
And it came down through that. The desire and want and love to train animals is somehow within you. It's not it's something that you can learn, but it's better if it's in you.
It's inherent, sort of thing.
It's just there, you
Yeah.
know. And Dad taught me how to read animals, and I was blessed to be able to spend a lot of time with some very, very, very good old men. Mainly a man called Jimmy Wilton, who was a wonderful old horse trainer. And I was also blessed with being able to knock around with some really great old horsemen that worked horses for a living.
Mm.
I mean, at 12 years of age, a man called Harold Kemsley at Narromburn would get me to sweep the road between the Narromburn Church right up to Willoughby Girls High School and back again, and I drove a black horse. Who would today trust a 12-year-old kid to go out in the street with a horse and tip tray and sweep the streets? But they trusted me, you know. So I was, again, blessed to be able to be with these old men.
And where did that connection to those old men come?
I wanted to learn things.
So you sought them out?
I sought them out, and what I learned from them, I couldn't learn out of a book.
Yeah.
They were just terrific, patient, lovely old guys, you know, and no one had listened to them except a scruffy, smart-ass kid.
Yeah.
You know, and they accepted me, and I spent a lot of time with them and learned a lot of things. Dave Cody, who was boss of the elephants at Sydney Tronka Park.
Yep.
Dad was a mate of Sir Edward Hallstrom's. I was always at the zoo every minute I got, and learned a lot off Dave. Just willing to tell you stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was wonderful when I was a kid, learning things.
And was that at the detriment of schooling?
Oh yeah, it's no good at school. I wish I'd have learnt more. I wish I'd have been more attentive. But even in those days, some of the one particular old vagrant that lived round anywhere he could camp round North Sydney was an old guy called Sully. And Sully was the head bird catcher for Sir Edward Hallstrom.
Right.
And I always wanted one of those little palm squirrels. And when I was at school, he brought me a palm squirrel in the box. And I wanted a peregrine falcon. And he turned up at school one day with a falcon.
And the glove, hopefully, as well.
And the teacher there was a fellow called Keith Baker. And Keith Baker said, "You'll have to stop these old men coming to school with these animals, you know." But Sully was just an old vagrant, living on the streets, drinking sherry and that sort of thing, but a knowledgeable old guy and knew a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Georgie Cann was the man that his father had out at La Perouse, had the snake pits.
Oh, yes. Snake man of La Perouse.
Learned a lot off him about handling the reptiles. I had to do that because we drifted in to film and television. I did my first introduction to television in 1956 at Pagewood. It was all embryonic, and Dad was able to take contracts to supply animals to film. And at 10 or 12-year-old, I was going out and doing jobs, you know.
Okay.
I went to Pagewood, and I met Peter Houston off there. I took a dog called Ocker that Dad had trained for the film The Sundowners. Dad ultimately went down to Port Augusta and he doubled for Houston off in the film. Mum doubled for Deborah Kerr. I tried out as a stunt double for Michael Anderson Jr. I never got the job, but I was only 12.
Yeah.
And there was work there if you wanted it. And of course, then I went into the police force as a cadet at 17. I learnt shorthand and typing and realised pretty early that no one had let me sit on their knee and take shorthand. So all these things that I learnt sort of come into play, you know.
So tell me about your time in the police force.
I was in the police for about 23 years, 22 years, 11 months and 4 days to be exact. Worked in some hard areas, tough areas. I've been in 4 gunfights. I've been stabbed. In those days, we didn't get a lot of support. We didn't know about support. I mean, it's the same as working in the dairy and getting kicked by a cow. You don't give it up. You just keep on going. But I burnt out. I had 2 or 3 heart attacks, and Dr. Maury Vane was the police medical officer, and he said, if you stay in the police force, it'll kill you. Mm. So they boarded me out medically unfit. I was a sergeant here at Camden, and they boarded me out when I was about 39 or 40.
So for those that, well, they wouldn't know, I'm 58, nearly 59. I've known you, I think I met you with Dad. I was probably about 8, maybe 10 years of age.
You're only a bit of a little bloke.
And Glen, for me, over many, many years, has been somewhat of a mentor. And it's funny, you know, we mightn't talk for months, but then we catch up and it's just nothing skips a beat.
No,
just
nothing's
skip
changed.
Nothing's changed. Carry on. I remember you're a station sergeant at Liverpool.
Yeah, I was.
I remember vividly, and I was in high school, so I'm thinking I was probably 14 or 15, and I had a mate down for the weekend because I boarded away, and I'm sure my sister Prue was with us as well, and Dad took us down to Liverpool Police Station, and you were sergeant in charge.
Yep, in the station.
And something I'll never forget is you said, come on, I'll show you into the cells. And we all walked into the cell and you slammed that steel door shut. Oh, I tell you what, to this day.
Threw the bolt over?
Yeah, that's right. To this day, that sound is just stuck with me.
Put the breeze up, yeah.
No. it
never hurt you. You turned out all right.
Oh, well, yeah, some would say not. But anyway, so medically discharged from the police at 39.
Yeah.
So where to from there?
Well, I realised early in the piece, my father was an inspector of police, but he was also a master bricklayer. He could build he built 2 houses that we lived in, and I realised that my only qualifications were shorthand and typing. Apart from the fact that I was a good shot with a pistol and I could drive a car fast. Well, there was nothing
none of
there.
things that sort of
not a lot there. So
career-wise take you forward.
Oh, I was, and I was getting about $17 a week as a police cadet, $34 a fortnight. It was hard going, and you were paying board out of that too, and home with Mum. And I wanted something else, and I fell in with a man called Cecil Cronin, who owned Windsor Way Carriages, which is now the Mean Fiddler or the Fiddler restaurant.
Yeah.
It was a halfway between Parramatta and Windsor. It was a staging post for the horse coaches running out there. And I started to drive harness horses and then ultimately weddings. And he sent me down to Borkham Hills to get some whips, pick up some whips from an old whip maker called Ed Lawrence, William Edgar Lawrence. And the moment Eddie and I shook hands, we were mates. And he was 70-odd, and I was interested in the trade, and he taught me the trade until he died at 76 in 1976.
Right.
So I realised then that I could make a good living out of platen whips. It wasn't much. We were getting in those days about $7.50 for a finished whip. But my speed in plaiting was such that I could knock them out. So once I'd had my heart attack at 39, I just went platen whips. And I was breaking in horses for the racing industry and breaking in harness horses and that. Anything to get $1. I broke in a couple for Carlton United Breweries, and I set up a thing called Clydesdale Restaurant for a guy out at Windsor, where he wanted a 4-in-hander horses, and I said, you won't get anybody to drive them. So that's how I came up with the 3 abreast. So I set that up for him. I just do anything to get $1, and doing film as well, film and television as well. So.
And that was working specifically with animals?
Oh yeah.
On your good-looking rooster. I mean, you could have been on the screen yourself.
That was it. I was a bit disappointed there's no makeup or anything here.
No, mate, we're running on a very, very tight budget. Like cost of living,
I know.
Fuel prices, all that sort of thing.
I know. My
if you want
cost
makeup,
for the day.
get Wendy to do it before you come in.
Yes, that Uber would have cost you $1 to get me picked up.
So, I've known you
since you're about 10. Well, yeah. I'm 80-year-old now.
There you go. And
a long while.
The horses, to me, the horses that are synonymous with you are the harness horses and the heavy horses. They're the ones that I've seen you work in the time of our friendship more than others. Is there a favourite out of all of those?
No, I just I started off. I started off with saddle horses, again only to get $1, and I was breaking in for the racing industry whilst I was still in the police.
Where were you doing that, like breaking in?
Well, my wife Wendy, was the daughter of a dairy farmer, and they owned a property called Stanhope Park, which is now Stanhope Gardens at Rouse Hill, Kellyville. And I had 5 acres there, and I was breaking in up there.
Right.
And then R.W. Miller's had a place at Glenroy, and they had a good setup there. And because I was working shift work, they put floodlights up over the round yard. That's so I could work, when it was a bit dark.
Yeah.
So, I was getting $1 out of that. And I was breaking in horses. I was just breaking in harness horses for anybody that wanted them. And as I got bigger, I thought, well, I can't keep on doing this forever. So I started to break in a few heavy horses. And I did a lot of heavy horses, Clydesdales, Shire horses. I broke in one of the last Suffolk punch horses, purebred horses, in Australia. That horse was a mare, ultimately bought by R.M. Williams, bought by his wife by a horse called Mukai Thunderer. Beautiful big chestnut mare she was. I ultimately ended up doing R.M.'s funeral up at Queensland in 2002 with my horses.
And what was your role in that?
I supplied my mare Slipper and a beautiful mare I had called Doublet, a grey mare. Terry Goodyear, who drove the mare, he wouldn't do it unless he had her, and he knew she was safe.
Yeah.
I'd bring her in here and lay her down on the floor, and she wouldn't move. I only lost her on the 15th of September this year.
Yeah, right.
Last year, sorry. Yeah.
At what age?
Oh, she was 30-odd.
Yeah, I was going to say she'd be a fair age.
Oh, good mare. Oh, good mare. Yeah, the best ever I had. And all of them were good. They came out of Loma Park Stud up in the back of Teresa Park. And the people up there bet that I wouldn't be able to break them in. but they were just horses, you know. If a man with brains can't break a savage horse in, well, a man with brains ought to give it away.
Yeah.
They were just good horses. You've got to turn that attitude in them around to suit you, not suit them.
Yeah.
And once you can get them twisted round to do what you want, by crikey, they're good horses.
So,
opinion.
Did you know RM personally?
No, I only met him when he'd passed away. It was way back in 2002. I left here, left Teresa Park, where we were at that stage, and I drove up there with old Joe Vandermolen, the old hockey man from here.
Yep.
I would take no other man with me. If I couldn't get there, he'd have pushed that truck up. He was a good operator, old Joe. And we just did the funeral. It was just another job, you know.
Because you were in the procession, if I recall. Was Terry was driving?
Terry was driving.
With the casket on the back?
Casket on the back, and I walked behind with Doublet.
Got it.
And I remember, he's a cheeky fella, that good here. I remember I was walking along, and he looked round and he said, "Not too much further now, old fella." I said, "I'll be right." He said, "I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to RM." Yeah, couldn't care a hoot about me.
Because that was up in Queensland, the funeral, wasn't it?
Yeah, went up to Queensland and did the funeral. Yeah. People say it's fun, but it was only ever work. It was only ever work. You know, there was nothing else in it. It was work. That's all.
It's just a job.
Just a job. Yeah, my very word.
So let's go back to the whip making because, well, from when you first had that interaction till today, you're making whips.
Yep.
And I'll embarrass you, but I'm going to say arguably the best and most well-known whip maker in this country.
I think the best is a man called Chris Barr. I think I'm well known, but Chris Barr, he can really make a lovely whip. Chris is in Queensland. But I can say that I'm the only person in Australia fully qualified as a whip maker. There's a lot of others that have learnt the trade through TAFE.
Right.
And good luck to them for that. But I'm the only one that I know of that has a recognised trade certificate in it, which to me was important, you know.
So what goes into making a good whip?
I think knowledge, patience, good materials, and the ability to know the materials are right, the preparation of the materials, and then the creation of the thong of the whip. The whip's made up with a thong, which people call the whip part, and the handle, which we call the stock crop. You've got to be able to plait the whip in such a way that you maintain the kinetic energy in the whip. Within the whip, there's another little whip called the belly. That's got to be the right length. The bolster or overlay which goes, or the bolster which goes over the belly, has got to be the right length. The overlay, which is 8, 12, 16 or 20 strand, that's got to be made in such a way that the kinetic energy that is formed when you throw the whip out with your hand and it goes bang, it just can't float round, but it can't be heavy either. It's all made up on the displacement and placement of energy within the whip. The handle's got to be the right length to suit the thong. Blokes in the bush don't want to be carrying a great heavy whip around with them. They carry the whip in the crook of their arm. They carry the end of the thong in their hand. Well, they don't want a great big thing hanging there. They need it. It shouldn't be anything that's going to disrupt what you're trying to do.
It's got to be an aid to you as opposed to a hindrance, as it were.
You don't want to cut bootlaces out of a bullock's eyelids with it. It's mainly made to make a noise, crack, make a bang, which is the whip breaking the sound barrier. And you might have to give something a hit on the backside with it, but it's only meant as a distraction to to crack and make them move, you know.
And a lot of those stockmen, they're on horseback.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, as you say, the last thing they want is this, great heavy thing that they've got to try and crack.
Well, in America, they use 8, 10 and 12 and 15-foot whips, especially in Florida. But we couldn't use that length of whip out here. I've said to you a few times, like 5 foot, beautiful. 5 foot 6, 6 foot, lovely. But if you're making whips for fellas up in the territory where they're handling real wild bulls and that sort of thing, well, you'd want them a bit longer than that so the boys on the horse and the horse can keep away from the danger of a cranky bullock, you know.
Yeah.
You learn these things as you go along. I make a lot of holly driving whips and delivery whips for horses, spring cart whips, bull whips, red-hide whips. They call the red-hide whips, but the correct word is a team whip because they were used by the teamsters, you know. I make a lot of different styles of whips that other men can't or don't make, if I can say that.
Well, you talk about a bullwhip. So a bullwhip is used, correct me if I'm wrong, typically by a bullocky when he's trying to drive a team.
Bullock whip. Bullock whip, generally, you measure the handle from the ground to your middle of your nose. That's the handle of it. If you're working bullocks in a team on a road surface between Wilcannia and Cobar, where there's no trees, you can get a whip, 8 or 12 foot long. But if you're making whips for men pulling timber out of the bush at Bungwall or Bulladela, you only want something about 6 or 7 foot long because it gets caught in the trees as they throw it about, you know. And those old fellas never flogged a bullock. I had a bullock team, which you probably remember.
Yeah.
And they say they remember the times that them old fellas could knock a fly off a bullock's hoof. Well, I can do that too.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt them, but it gets... you don't have to flog them, but they've got to know that you're capable of giving the worst bashing that they've ever had. But you don't give it to them,
Yeah.
you know? Don't do it to a horse either.
Yeah.
But they got to know you can.
Yeah. You're capable of it if you have to.
Oh, you got to be the most evil man in the world to them.
So, talk to me about the hide. Mostly all kangaroo?
Yes, I get mine from a particular tannery, and they come from the desert region. They're generally red bucks. There's no barbed wire fences. Most kangaroos won't go over a fence, they'll go under them, and they score themselves from the wither up over the rump when they go under the barbed wire, and you get these big longitudinal scratches or marks in their back. And if you're cutting round the hide and you've got those marks, tick marks or scratches in their backs, as you're making your stock whip, you'll break them, and you don't want that to happen. So I get mine specifically red bucks from the desert or blue does, they're the female, to allow me to do fine work. You can use the eastern grey, but I generally don't. I stick to the reds. People here get upset about the kangaroo being culled. They're being culled by professional shooters to reduce numbers. There's 60 million of them in Australia at the present time, and there's people not going out willy-nilly killing them. They're taken, and you've got to have permits to take them, and each skin's got to be identified and have tags on them. You'd be given so many tags for so many roos, so they're not going out there willy-nilly with a machine gun killing them.
Yeah, and I guess the eastern kangaroos, which are more certainly prevalent around here, they're the ones that are more likely to come across fences and say go under the fence and then therefore compromise the hide.
Yeah, that's right. See, around here I mean, there's roos getting knocked every night round here on the roads.
Yeah.
And deer too. But the eastern grey round here, they stick down along the Nepean River there. We're out at the farm when we had it. There were some wallabies coming there, which was beautiful. But there's still eastern greys getting up here. Yeah. Oh, but up here between the bottom of Razorback there, Finns Road, and that you'll often see a roo knocked on the side of the road.
Well, even I've noticed more recent times coming out of the woodland around Harrington Park.
Yep.
On the Northern Road.
Yeah, there's one killed there the other day.
Yeah. Seen a few of recent times coming out of there. So, whip making, is it a dying art, or is there a younger generation keeping it alive?
There's younger people wanting to learn how to plait whips, but they would find it hard to get a living at it with the cost of the skins now.
Yep.
Probably the reluctance of people to take them on as students, and the fact that kangaroo skins, they've nearly ceased to import them overseas, but the American makers over there getting kangaroo skins are making beautiful whips. There's, out here in Australia, I would think, look, I could count on my hand the number of really good men that we have here, real good men. I single out Chris Barr because he's a very good man, does 72 plait work.
Wow, I mean, that's incredibly intricate, isn't it?
He's a good man, and one of the most unassuming men you would ever want to meet. Just a lovely bloke. There's a young fellow down in Tasmania. I've never met him, Simon. I can't remember his surname, but there's a young fellow in Tasmania. There's a couple up round Tamworth. In my time, when I started off back in the 70s, there was Eddie Lawrence, there was Hill. The Hill family were prolific whip makers. And they're all, but the old Tom Hill, when Ed Lawrence passed away, Tom Hill said, "Come on, I'll show you the rest of it." And he was a tough old operator. He was a hard old man, that fella. His cousin was making whips. George Vogt was making whips. The Kramers were making whips. But it all sort of went, Them old fellas were plaiting whips well into my age now, yeah. Not so much now. There'd be blokes knocking out whips, but not as much as there were. As many as there were.
I mean, I've watched you work more times than I care to think about, and it's you're a big man. You've got big hands, but the intricacy of what you can do, it never ceased to amaze me.
Well, I think it's muscle memory. What I tried to do, I always thought, what happens if I go blind and can't see? And I train myself to plait whips with my eyes shut so that I could go through feel them. I'm not saying I could plait an 8-strand whip, but if I wanted to make $1 plaiting 4-strand red hide whips, I would shut my eyes and plait them. I've tried also to cut them out in 4-strand with my eyes shut, and I can do that. So it's muscle memory, and you've seen me cut out.
Yeah.
And people said, "Oh, how do you do that?" Well, I don't know how I do it, but that's the way I was shown how to do it.
I know you've got a big thumbnail that you use as like almost a guide.
Yeah, nearly faint when it breaks.
Down tools for 6 weeks till it grows back.
No. By gee, I go up and see the local girls in the tie shop and get them to put a false nail on. Yeah, no.
There's something I didn't know about you.
Yeah. I used to put nail hardener on it. I was called up one time, and the detective sergeant called me upstairs, and he said, "The men want to know why you're wearing nail polish." I said, "I'm not wearing nail polish." I said, "I've got nail hardener on there." Anyway, I said, "It's none of your business." That was just to stop it breaking.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So something that I think is wonderful, and it's one of your ways of keeping the art of whip making going and giving back, is you're prolific on Facebook, where you'll just turn it on, your phone on, and just record yourself and just talk to people and explain what you've done, what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and it you've got an incredible following.
I think that's because I feel comfortable in front of cameras. I was a Channel 9 pin at Channel 9 when Desmond Tester had the Channel 9 pins, which was like the Mickey Mouse Club. I was a Channel 9 pin kid, and I was used to talking to cameras. And I think that comes through with what I do. I see the camera as a friend, not an enemy, and I can talk to it. And I did promise myself in this trade when I took it over, and the horse trade as well, I did promise myself that I would never be secretive and take that which I've learnt to the grave, as a lot of them old fellas did
before you. Yeah,
and I promised myself that I'd never ever do that. Old George Vogt, wonderful whipmaker down in Croydon. He was an old man, 80-year-old, and Stuart, he wouldn't tell you where a tap was for you to get a drink of water if you were perishing of thirst.
Yeah, right.
He was that secretive, and I promised I'd never be like that.
But I suppose in a day where whip making was certainly more prolific than it is these days, the old blokes kept things to themselves because they didn't want other people copying what they were doing. Correct. And
they come up through the Depression.
Yes,
and they had to keep those little things that were trade secrets. George Vogt showed me a hole in the back of his workshop where a bloke had got there one night with a brace and bit and drilled a hole in the back of his shed so he could sit there and watch how he did things. I mean, it was so secretive.
Yeah.
But again, I was blessed because none of these old fellas that taught me hesitated in any way in giving me anything that I asked for as far as information goes.
Why is that?
I have no idea. I don't know. I was interested, but if anybody else came in there to ask them, they just clammed straight away. They'd never, ever, ever prevented or stopped me learning. Tom Hill was very secretive, and a really good whipmaker. He was a drover and come down here to work for his Uncle Bert at Balmain, and his uncle wouldn't show him how to do the fine work and the intricate plaiting and the name plaiting. And Bert Hill put Tom beside Bert's son, Kevin, and he would show Kevin, old Bert would show Kevin how to do the intricate work, and Tommy would be plaiting and had his eyes over there watching him, then go home. And,
it's like cheating on a test.
But yet I asked Tommy, and Tommy showed me straight away.
So it was probably speaks a lot to you and your character that they gave you of their time and their expertise. But I also think potentially there was a big age divide then. You were just a young whippersnapper, and these were old craftsmen, so I suppose they didn't feel threatened by you.
But even it was the same for any of the old animal trainers, the circus people that I made whips for, bull whips. like a great old exotic animal trainer, elephants, tigers, bears, lions. Was a man called Fritz Schultz. He would tell me anything I asked him. He's a really top animals trainer. Stafford Bullen, Bullen's Animal World, he was another man. He's just been recently talking to his son Craig and his wife Zaley. The circus people unstinting in their information. Yep. I didn't want to go out and train 4 lions.
No.
But if I was there at a facility where they were training young lions, they would say, come in here, and they would show me what they did. I was frightened of getting ripped to bits by them. But, the elephants were the same. The only elephant that ever put the breeze up me was an elephant called Abu. She chased me one time and treed me, put me up a fig tree at a golf course at Camaray, I remember. Oh, she was a bad elephant.
What was she? What were you and Abu doing at Camaray Golf Course?
Well, that's where Ashton Circus, Lorraine Ashton is a friend of mine, and Dad lined it up with Lorraine's dad for me to go with them over holidays. I was only a cheeky 12 or 13-year-old kid, and I learnt to do a little bit with camels, and Abu was there, and they said, "Don't go near her." She was pretty dangerous. If she took a dislike to you,
which she clearly did to you.
Yeah. She put me up this fig tree. I went up quicker than Tarzan's chimpanzee. She put the breeze up me, I can tell you.
So you've had, and now I'm sort of doing this bit of research for this. I'm understanding obviously where your horsemanship skills have come from, and coupled with the TV and the movie work, you did you were quite heavily involved for some time with the Royal Agricultural Society, or Sydney Easter Show as people know it.
35 years, I think.
And you were instrumental in a lot of the productions for the night show.
Yep.
Tell us about some of those.
Well, I started off as a contractor more, providing a horse for something or sheep for something. I wanted to do a meal on the showground, and I reckon it would be a good thing to have candelabras and tables on the showground and walk sheep through them. And I got a mate of mine, Greg Glasgow, to bring the sheep, and he walked all the sheep through all the punters while they were there and eating a meal. And I remember I was walking up Grand Parade, and Hamish Turner and Andrew Cooper come walking along, and I think Hamish or Andrew said to me, he said, would it be possible to do the Man from Snowy River on the main arena at Sydney? And it had never been done, so why would you say no?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't say no. It had never
where there's a will.
Done. So I said, oh, yes. He said, do you want to have a go at it? I said, oh, yeah, I'll have a go at it. So we got Fitzsimmons, who was a contractor with the rough stock. He provided the horses. We got local boys round here, some of the Biffin boys and
Jason Sharp.
Johnny Kelly,
yeah.
And I remember I was sitting in the grandstand. I'd been up with Linnell Smith and Andrew Cooper, and they couldn't figure out how to get a hill made, because in the poem revolves around a terrible descent, where Jim Craig comes off the top of a hill and gallops his horse, that dun-coloured horse, down the side of a hill to chase the Brumby stock and get the stallion back. And I'd worked it out that if I could build a ramp off the wall onto the floor of the main arena and then dress one side of the seating as a bush, we could use that. And I said, rang Linnell, and I said, come down here, I found your hill. Well, she was down in the millisecond. before I hung up from her, and we just sat there and discussed where I reckon we could build the hill. But again, that was only a job to me. It was, it was, no one had ever done it. And I think the RAS and the contractors that I brought on board were the first people that ever done a live production of that sort using horses and men on the main arena. It was great, but it was only ever a job.
It's interesting.
Just a job.
Yeah. But a challenge, I would have thought too, that someone, as you said, no one's done it before, so...
It's never a challenge. No one had done it before, and you're flying on the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
But I had good men, good horses. I jumped a girl, I can't remember her name. She's a good girl. She's a vet now in the bush. On an Australian stock horse, I jumped her off the wall of the arena, 5'6" down on the floor on a pad of sand only an inch thick.
Right.
And she was on an Australian stock horse. It was Gemma Coleman.
Okay.
I don't know what her married name is now. She's a vet out in the bush, but she was only a bit of a 17-year-old girl. I mean, who would think about those things? But the Australian stock horse, if you point him at something, he's got to do. He can't say, oh, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
He's got to do.
Yeah.
If you ask him. And this blessed horse, a bay horse with black points, I think it was one of Kelly's horses, jumped off that every night. And young Jason rode a dun-coloured horse and come down that hill. We filled the branches of the trees that he had to go through with talcum powder, and he come down that hill at a hand gallop. And my heart was in my throat every night in case that blessed horse stumbled. No, never put a foot wrong.
Yeah, no. They were wonderful evenings, and
took it to Queensland.
Well, I was going to say, is that? I mean, there's that sort of I think Man from Snowy River sort of thing that's done up around the Gold Coast. Did they sort of take that off?
Well, we went up there and had a look at myself, Dave Hart, Hamish Turner, Angus Cooper. They flew us up there to the Gold Coast, but it would have been difficult.
Yeah.
The Man from Snowy River that I was involved in is a main arena production. And Sydney Royal Easter Show is created in such a way that it's an amphitheatre.
Mm.
To do that show where the seating is level with the floor would be very difficult. It was, gee, I'm going to sound terrible when I say this, but it was as easy as falling off a log.
Yeah.
You've got the right men, the right stock, the right blokes around you. And it was dangerous, but you don't know how dangerous something is until you do it.
Mm.
I got up on the top court of the Sydney Harbour Bridge about 1966, rescued an Aboriginal kid off there. I was going to jump off. Now they get paid, or they get paid for walking up.
Yeah, that's right, and paid handsomely too.
It frightened you that.
Oh, I've not done the walk, but
mate, it sways and carries on. And I was paraded before the Metropolitan Superintendent the next day for not having my cap, a tie, and my appointments, which were pistol and handcuffs. Old Matt Chaseling tore strips off of me because I was out of uniform.
Although you're on top of the Harbour Bridge.
Saving this blessed kid, you know. The Aboriginal kid said to me, I won't jump if you give me a cigarette. And I said, righto, and I lit it for him and handed it to him. See, I took my tie off because I didn't want him to grab my tie.
Yeah, well, he could have pulled you down with him.
Yeah, he took me with him. So, but old Matt didn't see it. Matt Chaseling didn't see it that way. There was bits of hide of me hanging off everywhere. My old man was outside and he said, I thought you were going to get a medal. I said, well, I bloody will never. By geez, he give it to me. Wow.
So, what led you to teaching at TAFE over at Richmond? A job?
Well, it was advertised, and I thought I can do that. I had a diploma in horse breeding. That was one of the quals that you had to have. And again, I wanted to I wanted to give back and show the kids, and I gave them notes and stuff, and I showed them. The TAFE purchased 2 completely wild, unbroken wild horses from down in the snowy country, and they wanted to see how they handle them. They end up beautiful horses. I called them Bonnie and Bess. Oh, beautiful horses they were, both black. And I showed them how to handle them. I showed them how to do the horse's teeth. I gave them recipes for things that I'd used over the years for cuts on horses, and I showed them how to mouth a horse. Well, none of that stuff was in the curricula.
No.
But I felt it was so important. And I got a pair of draft horses from Greg Glasgow, who's a good mate. I got a pair of draft horses off him, and I introduced the young people to heavy horses. But in the back of my mind, I wanted the young blacksmiths to be able to know the heavy horse and be able to make a set of shoes from them and shoe them and handle them without being frightened. You know? There was a side thing to it. I wanted the kids to know about the horse. That was important for me.
And how long were you over there for?
7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. My boss went from there. She retired. One of the teachers mentioned that they didn't need my type of horsemanship round anymore. So I was only a casual teacher there. So I wasn't sacked or anything. I just
packed up and
said ta-da.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing sort of folded after that.
Yeah, right.
We had 200 or 300 students there. And the kids used to ring up and say, I only want to go in Glen Denholm's class. And I think it upset a few of the other teachers.
Oh, it probably did, but again, that sort of...
I didn't care anyway.
No, of course not. But I mean, you know, because you're doing things differently and you know, it would have been so practical. Well, wouldn't have been out of the textbook. It would have been...
You've seen me handle horses.
Oh, of course.
You know, people don't like hobbling horses. Hobbles is essential. They don't know how to mouth a horse. They do all different sorts with them. They don't know how to do a horse's teeth. They've got to get a vet to do it. Well, I mean, I showed them all those things.
Yeah.
And how often do kids... I mean, one of the girls that I had there, who shall remain nameless, wanted to drive the pair of horses in a Cobb and Co coach, nearly drove the blessed thing straight into the library. I won't say who it was, but I said, you better turn them. I said, we're getting terrible close to those sliding doors. Here, you drive. Yeah. Oh, good times. 7 years I had there, yeah. It was good times.
Yeah, as I say, and that practicality, like if you and a lot of kids do it these days, they'll finish school and they'll go up to the Territory or up to Queensland, jackarooing for 12 months or for a season. You don't have vets at hand. You need to hobble horses. You need to be able to mouth horses. You need to be able to do their teeth. They're just the practical aspects of it. And
John Drinnan's grandson's gone up there, I think. Mark Scarce.
Yeah, Mark Scarce's young bloke's up there.
He's up there. I think he's on Victoria VRD, I think he's on. Gives young people character. You know, and it allows them to work things out for themselves. God gave you a head and 2 hands. You've got to work things out, you know.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's probably single-handedly the greatest regret I've got in my life was I had an opportunity when Kerry Packer owned Consolidated Pastoral to go jackarooing with John Singleton's son Jack for a season, and I didn't do it. And to this day, it's the greatest regret I've ever had. I never took that opportunity.
Listen, for a young bloke, you're doing all right. You shouldn't worry. No regrets, mate.
I don't have too many, but that's something that I should have, would, and could have done.
Yeah, you know, remember Edith Piaf. No regrets. Keep on moving forwards.
I'll remember that. Yeah. So, how much of the traditional stockman's knowledge do you think is being lost, or is it just sort of is it still hanging in there?
Oh no, I think the biggest problem with the young station hands today, or yesteryear, they went from horses over to bikes.
Yeah.
And the cattle all got silly. And apart from that, the throttles on a bike are on the right-hand side. Most young men and women are right-handed, so they never used a whip.
Yeah.
And suddenly cattle got silly. It wouldn't do as they were told. It's the reason why a lot of the big places are bringing the horses back now, because horses make the cattle quieter, and it gives you an opportunity to do things. It's got to be handled on cattle should be handled off a horse.
And it's the old things like what is old is new. You say everything was done on horseback, and then technology, mechanisms came into place, i.e., motorbikes.
Yep.
But then it's done the full circle, and it's coming back. You say just about all the big stations that I'm aware of have all got teams of horses now.
All got teams of horses. See, Wendy, my wife Wendy, she was a Peel, and she rode a horse to school. We got married, and she helped me break horses in. Rode all my young breakers. She'd come with me, and we do the weddings together. It's in our lives,
Well, you used to do the big horse-drawn carriages for the weddings, didn't you?
That's right. Used to do a thing called Farm Sunday, which you would remember.
Yes.
The showground. That was wonderful. We had the horses there. It's just a pity that young people aren't exposed to that anymore.
Yeah.
And it genuinely is a sadness of mine that young people don't get to experience that. And I had a triple bypass when I turned 70, and the doctor said to me, just watch being around with the horses. If you get a hit in the chest and they break those stitches, you're in a bit of trouble. So I had to sort of give it away, which I miss it terribly.
Yeah, yeah. Because you were keeping, I remember when you and Wendy were living down near Wollongong.
Keep a horse up here.
And keep a horse up here, and you're up and down here.
Twice a week.
Yeah.
I like to look at them, and I like to smell them, and I like the way they talk, like look at you and that. It's very hard to get away from. See, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't have been born. But over the road where Woolworths is, they were all the breaking-in yards of Poppy Watson.
Okay.
Behind Tilsley's.
Yeah, right.
So that was all big breaking-in yards, and they used to take them straight out of there onto the trotting track. All the trotting horses were ridden. They weren't driven then in them days. They were ridden.
Really?
Yeah.
So no gig?
No gig, no. They were all ridden. All ridden horses, paces and trotting horses. And Poppy used to break in right there. They buried him up on the hill out there, South Camden. They buried him up there in the Protestant section with his spurs on. Yeah, Georgie Watson told me if you rode one of my father's horses and it stumbled, hang on. Because Poppy wore these little sharp spurs and he'd jag him into the horse would blurt and jump.
So you're talking about, the behaviour of a horse, the smell. They're used extensively now as therapy for people with, mental health issues, anxiety, all of that sort of thing.
They know. They used to come in. I had a wonderful outsider. She's still a good girlfriend, if I can use that term.
You can.
Good mate, a girl called Canada. Canada, always at the show with me. She was my right-hand girl and a terrific girl. When I wasn't around, I was doing something at the show or something at the Royal, and we'd have kids come in wheelchairs, kids with cerebral palsy and kids that were not well, and she'd go and get old Slipper and bring them out, and that mare would put her head in these young people's, on their chests and love them. it's you know, they know when things aren't right, and I don't know how they know, and they reckon they're just dumb animals, but no animal that I've ever handled is dumb. I'll tell you, many years ago, I was at the Taronga Park, and they had young gorillas there, George and Mary Kong. They were only little fellas, and I used to go in there with Sir Edwin's granddaughter, and I'd play and wrestle these blooming things. They was, I don't know how big they'd have been, but they'd have been two I don't know, how metre high or a bit less than a metre, 3/4 metres high. And I hadn't seen them for years. I'm talking when I was probably 15. I was married at 24, so it'd be 10 years since I'd seen them. And I took Wendy into the zoo. I wanted to show her the big bull elephant that Stafford Bullen had in his zoo, or big tusker. I want Wendy to see him, and I wanted to see George and Mary Kong. Now, these gorillas hadn't seen me for 10 years.
Yep.
And I walked in, and Georgie was sitting on a platform, and I said, "Oh, George." And he looked down, and he just... and I roared out, "Mary, Mary, Mary, Georgie's going to hurt me." And this female gorilla was in the corner. She flew over there and belted the tribe out. Yeah, and sat there, put a big arm out. Whether she wanted to touch me, I don't know, or whether she thought I might have given her a banana, I don't know. But that's all I had to say. "Mary, Mary, Mary, Georgie's going to hurt me." And over she come roaring and belted the hell out of him. Yeah, so they don't forget. They're not dumb animals.
No. But it's wonderful to see, and well, getting dogs, like therapy dogs and all of that sort of thing these days.
Yeah, horses are better. I like a therapy dog too, but you've got to have a cat and a dog about you. They know things. I was crook. I had that pneumonia. I was a lot sicker than I thought I was. And I was sitting in the office in a chair for 10 days. I couldn't lay down because the muck had pooled in my lungs. I was frightened of dying. And we have a cat at home called Bella, and she would come up there 4 or 5 times and make sure I was all right. And she was with Wendy, but she'd come up to that office and jump up and have a look and give a meow and walk off just to see if I was all right. You just don't know what they know.
Oh.
And if you believe in God, God sent angels down to earth without wings, and they were dogs. So they're angels without wings as far as I'm concerned.
You've worked with a lot of angels over a long time.
I've had 50 angels, 50 odd of them.
So you said that one of your ambitions was to show young people another way with the horse.
Yep.
What does that mean in a practical sense?
Don't knock the horse about. Don't knock him about and be cruel to him. Let him show you what he knows, and watch him mature in stages as he learns more and more. I know fellas that heat up hot irons and burn the corner of a horse's mouth to mouth him. Well, you're not putting a mouth on him that way. You're mouthing his brain. But these fellas that will cut him with razor blades and that sort of thing, you're not mouthing the corners of his mouth. You're mouthing what's between his ears.
Yeah, but that'd be a fairly old practice, though.
I know a bloke still doing it today.
Yeah, right.
And believes it's the right way to do it, but it's not the right way. You don't get their gobs sore or anything like that. They're too nice a people to be knocked about, you know.
And I don't know. Logic tells you that if you, in this case, hurt a horse's head or somewhere in its head, as you say, it's in the brain, and you go to try and do something with the head after that, you've got your work cut out, haven't you?
Oh yeah, it's the only way you can really work a horse that's been knocked about is to shock things out of him. You know, like a horse has been hurt bad. You've got to really work on him to get him right. And he can revert if he thinks things are going right. I remember old Dick Skinner, an old horseman. His grandfather was a Cobb&Co coach driver. I was talking about breaking in mules, and he said, never hit a mule with a stock whip. He said, because if it takes him 50 years, he'll square up with you. I've never ever forgotten that. Yeah, old Joe Van der Molen had a mule. I wouldn't go near that thing with a stick or a stock whip.
Yeah, right.
It'd wait.
It's like elephants having memories.
Oh, yeah, he'd nail you.
So, if there's one thing you could pass on to the younger generation of horsemen and women coming through, what would it be?
Oh, give the horse more time. Try and understand him when he's trying to tell you something. You know, give him time. Horses are like people. You know, some people learn quick. Some horses learn quick. Others take a little bit of time. You just got to take time. You know, next time you see a dog walking up to you, see what way his tail wags. If he knows you, it'll wag to the left. If he don't know you, it'll wag to the right. And that's his way of talking to you. You've got to understand what they're saying to you, you know.
Is that right?
Jimmy Wilton said you've got to learn the language of the equus, learn the language of the horse. And, you know, Georgie Taylor was a wonderful mentor and taught me how to drive harness horses, fours and pairs and six and in hand and that sort of thing. And we were going up Memorial Road at Rouse Hill with a four-in-hander horses. It was about 1967 or so, 68 perhaps. We're going up a hill, which we're coming up onto the Windsor Road. And George Taylor said to me, by gee, that's a beautiful mare in the paddock. And I said, how did you know it was a mare? Oh, it was a couple of 100 metres away. He said, you can see it's a mare. So I got a bit of hay then and went back round there and I threw the hay in the paddock and of course the horse trotted over. It was a mare all right. And he knew it was a mare just by looking its conformation and everything.
Yeah.
It never ever ceased to amaze me how he did those things. You know, them old blokes would know. They knew how to talk to him. They could tell you what a horse was going to do before he'd do it. We were going down Windsor Road with a four-in-hander going to Windsor, into Windsor, again about 1967. And he said, that near side leader will probably jump in a minute. He said, don't hit him with a whip. He said, I had a bucket of rocks. And he said, just drop a rock on his behind if he starts to fool about. And I just reached down and picked the rock up. And he did start to fool about it. And I threw the rock and lobbed it on his behind. And at the same time, old George called his name into the argument. Didn't have to flog him, but just tapped him on the bum with a little pebble. And George called his name. We never had another minute's captain, his name was, that horse. And the other leader was Major. Never had another bit of trouble with him. And I said, how'd you know that? He said, I knew he was going to do it. I didn't know how he knew.
Just years of experience, intuition.
Used to drive horses. He used to drive a horse from Crow's Nest across the Sydney Harbour Bridge to Darling Harbour, where the big breaking-in yards were down there at the convention centre.
Oh, right.
That's where they broke all the horses in down there for fresh food and ice and dairy farmers and that. Mm.
There you go. So 4 in hand, you've got a team
leaders,
of 4
leaders,
horses.
Yeah.
What's the biggest team you've ever driven?
6.
6.
Yeah, I did a six in hand for Belgeni Farm.
Okay.
In the wool wagon. I mean, you're virtually driving your leaders. As long as the leaders will go forwards, if they suck back or they pull to the side when you don't want them to, if they suck back, you're in trouble. If they don't obey you, you're in trouble. They've got to go forwards, and the horses behind them are body horses. Mm-hmm. Or pin horses, and the ones on the shafts are shafters, or pole horses. But the main ones are the leaders. And with the bullocks, I had 12 bullocks, and you can't really bash them. If they get frightened of you that day, you've lost them because you've got no reins on them, see? So you can't be cruel to them.
Yeah, they're all voice command and whip, aren't they?
Mainly voice command. I mean, again with the bullocks, with bullocks, they can see you and they'll get cunning and they won't be putting their neck into the job, and you got to roar at them and call their name and that and get them to keep going forwards. But you don't have to flog them, but they've got to know that you can be the cruelest man in the world.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be the cruelest man. Yeah, my two leaders were, what was that called? Sparrow and Lark were my leaders. They were big airshoe bullocks, and I mean I could talk to them. You'd remember little Danny Hill that I had.
Yes.
You remember Danny Hill?
Yeah.
Oh, well, she was only about 10 or 11. I never knew. She's over 40 now in Queensland and married. She used to go up there and ride in these things. I never knew she was doing that, and she told me just recently. They were as big as a draft horse.
Yeah.
Bloody things. They were big bullocks.
And where did you drive those bullocks?
Oh, at Tourist Park.
Yeah, right.
I did a couple of street parades with them. I used to demonstrate them at Belgany, take them over there. Oh, they were big bullocks. Don't worry about that. I mainly broke them in because one fella told me that it was very hard. Oh, it wasn't hard. It was easy. As long as the leaders will go. See, as long as the leaders will go forwards, you're right.
Yeah.
You only got to roar at them and that. I broke in a span, two of them, big Guernsey bullocks. They come from Belgany. I broke them in, big horned fellas. They were a bit soft, lovely big bullocks. And then I broke in another pair. They were probably 2 or 3 year old. I broke another pair of Friesians in, but they were big bullocks too.
Yeah.
Again for Belgany, but they never did anything with them because I owned all the gear, you see.
Okay.
I wasn't going to leave yokes and all that over there. I think they only died here recently.
Okay. Okay.
Fellas.
So, to wrap up.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Well, listen, there's no reason why we can't do a second one of these.
All right. Do whatever you want to do.
Stock whip, bull whip, or signal whip. If you could keep one, which would you keep?
Stock whip. Yeah, bull whips are all right, but stock whip's Australian, you know.
Yeah.
We've got to retain our identity, Stuart. We're fast losing the identity of the larrikinism and the Australianism that made our country famous, you know.
It's called being woke and politically correct.
Oh.
And
who did that say? One of those American generals said, whether it was MacArthur or Patton, one of those fellas said, I'd rather have a platoon of Australians to go to war with than anyone else. They're brave, crazy people, and mateship, solid with mateship and friendship, and never see a man in trouble. My old man was walking the beat at Phillip Street when he joined the police, 1929, and there was an old vagrant there shivering. Poor old fella. And in those days, the police used to wear button-up collared tunics.
right.
And under that, they'd wear a shirt, just a shirt. The collars on them then were all starched. They used to put them on with a stud at the back. Anyway, old man saw this old fella freezing. My grandfather was Leslie James Jeffrey. He was sergeant first class at George Street North. Dad was working out of there. And saw this old fella freezing on a winter's night in a singlet and pants, sitting there shaking, and old man took his tunic off and gave him his shirt to wear to try and keep him warm. Well, that's what Australian people do, and don't think twice about it. You know?
Give you the shirt off their back.
Give you the shirt off the back. That's very true. Yeah. Haven't got a feed, give him half of yours.
Yeah.
And we're losing that identity. And if people want to come from our country overseas, learn that identity and understand what we are. I mean, we're all come from convict stock.
Yep.
Pommies, Englishmen and Irishmen, and Scotsmen. Just, if they want to live here in peace and be accepted, then be one of us, you know. That's really important.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, thank you, mate.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, no, I'll wrap it up now. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I actually reckon there's another podcast down the track.
Whatever you want to do, I'll be there.
That's very kind of you, mate. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go now, and I'm going to buy Mrs. Denholm something for tea, and we'll sit in our house in front of the fire and eat it because it's too bloody cold out here now. All right, you be safe,
Getting
mate,
that
and
way.
take care.
Thank you, mate.
Love to Mum.
Much appreciated.
Right,
Thanks
mate.
for your time.
See
Cheers.
you, mate.